know you would like to some kind of way extract something out of this bottle, all right, that's not there. It's not there. You all speculate and create things, and then you want people to respond to it. So you can ask the bottle, but don't ask me.
Hello, and welcome to all of you out there in podcast land. My name is Clint Childers, and sitting across from me is the Georgia Peach, Mitch Davis.
How's it going, guys? Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, you are listening to Ask the Bottle, an SEC fancast, otherwise known as the What is Going On in the East podcast.
Yeah, no kidding. We got a lot of interesting takes. I mean, the facts pretty much speak for themselves today. It's going to be a good one.
Yeah. Write to us at askthebottle@gmail.com. Askthebottlecast, at gmail.com. Hey, follow us on Twitter. Interact with us on Twitter. Woo! At askthebottle. Listen and subscribe to us on iTunes and SoundCloud. And if you wouldn't mind, go ahead and go on iTunes and leave us a rate. Leave us a rating and review us on iTunes. We would definitely appreciate that. Tell us if you love us, if you hate us, whatever. Let us know. So week 3 was an unexpectedly incredible week of football.
Absolutely.
I think inside and outside of the SEC. Got a lot of big upsets, a double overtime thriller, some close games. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Seriously, it was, wall to wall, a lot of good games.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and get into those games. Going to go ahead and talk about some games around the country before we jump into the SEC. Let's see. Clemson and Louisville played in Louisville. The number 3 Clemson Tigers beat the number 14 Louisville Cardinals 47-21.
In Louisville. Yeah,
they went in there and got it done. The Clemson defense is definitely the real deal. They went into Louisville and held the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, Lamar Jackson, and the Cardinal offense in check pretty much the whole game. Didn't really let him get a whole lot going. Jackson was 21 of 42 for 317 yards. He had 3 touchdowns and he threw 1 pick, which seems okay, but that pick was pretty costly. It was returned for a 44-yard touchdown by Dorian O'Daniel, and that put the Tigers up in the game in about the third, on the other side of the ball for Clemson, Bryant went 22 of 32 for 316 yards and 1 touchdown, and Ray McLeod had 7 receptions for 115 yards and a touchdown. He led the day in receiving. Yeah, but the real offensive story for Clemson is the running game, man. 4 touchdowns on the ground for the Tigers, and Bryant got it in twice. Tough home loss for the Cardinals, though, but another very impressive win for Dabo and Clemson, and they're rolling. And looking at their schedule, man, I don't see another loss for them, really.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I mean, I was thinking this year, like, man, the ACC is going to be really interesting, and I'm not so sure now.
Well, after DeAndre Francois went down, I don't think Florida State's going to have what it takes to get it done.
Nope.
So we could see an undefeated Clemson this year, but we'll have to keep paying attention to them.
I'm thinking, and I'm that good old SEC bias that somehow still lasts even into this day and age where we have no idea what's going on. But I think that South Carolina game at South Carolina might be the one big hurdle.
Maybe. We'll have to talk a little bit about South Carolina's performance later on.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot to talk about.
Did you watch the UCLA-Memphis game at all?
I went back and watched most of the highlights.
It was a good game. Yeah, number 25 UCLA falls to Memphis in Memphis, Tennessee. I think Memphis made a statement to the entire country about what kind of program they're running.
Oh, yeah.
Third straight season with a ranked upset for the Tigers. That is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Incredibly evenly matched game, too. Time of possession was essentially equal. They had 3 turnovers on each side, which is not good, by the way. And it really came down to who had the ball last. Similar offenses at work, too. 633 yards of offense for UCLA, 560 for Memphis. Riley Ferguson, quarterback for Memphis, he did everything he could to out-quarterback Josh Rosen. Both threw some interceptions. Ferguson went 6 touchdown passes, and Rosen had 4 touchdown passes, and he ran for another, which is kind of weird for an immobile quarterback like Josh Rosen. Mm-hmm. But, the game came down to a 4th down, forced incompletion by the Memphis defense to seal the victory for the Tigers. And UCLA is going to slide out of the top 25 this week after a tough loss on the road.
That is crazy. That is after the start that they had, I was like, of all the teams to get upset, I don't know. It was weird.
Well, it was definitely evenly matched. So that was a great one. Had a classic matchup. Texas went to the Coliseum to play USC, number 4 USC. This game went into double overtime with the Trojans getting the 27-24 victory over the Longhorns. And just like the last time these two teams played in 2006 for the Natty, of course, it was a close one. But unlike that one, like I said, this one went into double overtime. Texas played out of their minds. That defense deserves all the credit in the world. They held a usually explosive rushing attack to just 71 yards and no touchdowns. Yeah, Sam Darnold didn't play his best game. 28 of 49 for 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. He had a QB rating of just 54 versus a 95 last week, so something happened there. The Longhorns had an equally woeful day on the ground, just 68 yards, and not a single rushing touchdown was scored in the game by either team. Down 17-14 with 2 seconds left in the game. Kicker Chase McGrath nails a 31-yarder to tie things up at 17, and they'd call his name again to win the game in double overtime with a 43-yard field goal to give USC the victory over Texas.
Unbelievable. I mean, we all know that this is a much more lopsided matchup than the one we saw in 2006. But honestly, I don't really think any of that matters. I think it was a momentum game from the start.
Absolutely.
It's all about the history, and I think it maybe mattered just enough to get USC the win on there at the end. But revenge game for the Trojans.
Absolutely. Well, real quick, let's talk about a little Pac-12 After Dark that didn't go so well for the Pac-12. And speaking of Pac-12 After Dark, that gets a whole new meeting in this game. Late in the fourth quarter, the lights in the stadium go out, and there was a 25-minute darkness delay.
So weird.
So weird. I guess somebody forgot to pay the bills. Stanford and San Diego State played in the. We didn't even say who played. Number 19 at the time, Stanford loses to San Diego State 20-17. Stanford's Bryce Love had a great day, went 184 yards on 13 carries, and he had 2 50-plus yard touchdown runs, but it just wasn't enough to give the Cardinal the victory. FBS leading rusher Rashad Penny for San Diego State, he went ham, 175 yards on 32 carries, and the Aztec offense played lights out.
How about
Sorry.
Perfect. How about San Diego State? That's crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
they're one of those teams that I always felt like was not totally beatable, and now they're 22.
Yeah, and they fall to 1-2 on the year after 2 straight losses to USC and now San Diego State. They drop out of the top 25, which is unfortunate. But San Diego State is on the uprise. This is their 3rd win over a Pac-12 team and the 2nd in 2 weeks. They beat Arizona State last week 30-20, and they're going to break into the top 25 at the number 22 spot, which I think is perfect.
It's always weird when 2 underrated, upset-prone teams play, and one of them wins because you're like, oh, man.
Yeah, exactly. Well, let's drop into the SEC. You want to go east or west to start today?
Well, to save you since you just went through most of that, I can start with the East if you would like.
Sounds perfect.
All right, I'm going to start with a blowout, Georgia-Samford. Just another typical between one of those first 4-week blowouts. Georgia running game looked strong as ever. Chubb went 16 for 131 yards, 8.2 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns. Sony Michel sat out, hence the reasonably decent-sized workload for Chubb. Sony was limited all week in practice, but it doesn't seem like a serious thing. Kirby Smart being super vague on the injury front, which I'll get to a bit more. Passing-wise, another good chance for Jake Fromm to get some experience. This was his first home start. He went 8 for 13, 165 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Gorgeous 51-yard touchdown to Terry Godwin, who is really stepping up. He did fumble twice, and he lost one. He fumbled in the Notre Dame game as well. He's got to work on the fumbles. Shout out to backup third-string quarterback Bryce Ramsey, who came in and didn't throw a pick. Last time he came in, he threw 2 back-to-back. He went 1 for 2 for 50 yards.
That is the name of the game. It's improvement right there. Improvement.
That is 100% fewer picks in this game.
Yeah, that's right.
Georgia defense looking good against Samford. 3 sacks, 6 tackles for loss. Lorenzo Carter balling out, 2 sacks, 2 tackles for loss. It was good. No sacks allowed by the O-line. It was a relatively clean blowout, which again is what you look for again in these games. Nice to see Fromm getting some good protection. I want to talk about most of this stuff just in reference to what's going to be happening next week, or I guess this week, I should say. Now, when the Dogs take on Mississippi State, we got some injuries. Cornerback Malcolm Parrish technically looks like he might return. He's definitely been missed as UGA's top corner. Eason may practice this week. We'll see. Again, Kirby's been super vague about it. I'm not really sure. But, Fromm is going to play again. It's not even a...
Yeah, even if Eason gets some reps in practice, it's not like he's going to throw him in there. No, not at all. Not against the Mississippi State team that is on literal fire.
Yeah, scorching right now. So, It was a bit weird. We did see Georgia get thrown on a bit by Samford. Their quarterback Devlin Hodges went 26-35, 227 yards and 2 touchdowns. But there was just 22 yards rushing on the ground. So it's clear that this front seven is strong. The run defense is strong. They just need to get Malcolm Parrish back there in the secondary. Definitely, Kirby had said it after the game. The Dogs just need to be a little bit cleaner. But the team looks talented. I think they can hang in any game. I think Notre Dame was a tough game, but I think the momentum was clearly on the Dogs' side. This week, I think, is the real test. Notre Dame was a great game. We had sandwiched by two cupcake blowouts, but I think this is the game where we really learn what the team is made of, because I know that they're going to have to, it's just not. There might be a point where there's maybe a 2-score lead in this game. There might be a point when it's. I don't know. Mississippi State looks good on both sides of the ball. They have Grantham, right?
Yeah, Todd Grantham is their defensive coordinator.
The defense looks fast. He knows Georgia. It's going to be interesting. I got to say, I think Mississippi State's going to win this one by a score. I'm calling 24-17 between the hedges.
Yeah, well, I'll help you elaborate on that. As we move back into the West, just want to start out by saying that I lied to you all last week and said that LSU was a good football team. They are not, and I am sorry that I spread such an egregious lie. I was very wrong about LSU.
I would say talented, but not good.
Yeah, I was very wrong. They're out here making me look like a big idiot. Let's talk about the Mississippi State LSU game. Number 12, LSU goes into Starkville, gets whooped by Mississippi State to the tune of 37-7. This is the first time in the 111-game series between LSU and Mississippi State that the Tigers have lost to the Bulldogs by 30. The story of this game is discipline, really. This Coach O LSU team is playing some of the most undisciplined football I've seen in a long time. 9 total penalties for 112 yards. That's over the length of the field that was taken away in penalty yards. And you're going to lose to literally anybody if you play that undisciplined. And this is the second straight week that LSU has played like this. 2 defensive stars were ejected for needless targeting penalties. Donnie Alexander and Neil Farrell were both thrown out of the game for just boneheaded shots. Just headshots on Nick Fitzgerald. The Tigers looked unprepared. They looked unmotivated. And they looked uninterested in playing football. Truly. After a scoreless first quarter, the Tigers were down just 17-7 to the Bulldogs at the half. So it's not like this game was out of control early or anything. All the Tigers needed was a spark on offense and a little tightening up for them defense, and that just never came. Etling went back to his purest 2016 form. He was 13 of 29 for 137 yards and no touchdowns.
Dude averaged 4.7 yards a reception with his receivers. That's nowhere. But it's crazy because Geis was averaging 5 yards a carry. He was I don't know.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. Geis. They held. The Mississippi State defense. They held Geis to 76 yards.
Right.
Which is his lowest since mid 2016.
That's crazy.
It broke his 4-game 200+ yard rushing streak as well.
I think they just came out and they got ahead pretty quick after the second quarter, and LSU just had to throw it, and Etling just couldn't handle it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you compare Etling's performance to Nick Fitzgerald's. Nick Fitzgerald went 15 of 23 for 180 yards, 2 touchdowns in the air and 2 on the ground through no interceptions.
It's that rushing. That dude is crazy.
Yeah. And the run game was on fire, like you just said. Williams and Fitzgerald combined for 234 yards on the ground. Yeah. Mississippi State's offensive line, they were physical, they were dominant, they cut hard, they pushed LSU's usually ferocious front seven just around. The Tigers just could not figure out how to win the point of attack in this game. And on the other side of the ball, like we said earlier, Todd Grantham has this Bulldog defense ready to go. They came out and they played incredible defense. They kept, like we said earlier, guys to a 76-yard total, and they kept them out of the end zone. LSU's lone touchdown came from the backup running back, Darrell Williams. And they got to Etling twice, spent some time in the backfield with 4 tackles for loss. Mississippi State just dominated. This is nothing to say, but just they dominated this game. Oh, yeah. In all facets. And all the props in the world to Dan Mullen and his staff for having this team completely prepared and completely ready to go against a tough SEC opener.
Definitely.
Yeah. So Mississippi State launches into the AP poll after this victory. They land at number 17, and I think deservedly so.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good spot for
They're
them.
good.
After taking down a number 12 team like that. And speaking of which, LSU falls from number 12 to number 25, which is a gut punch for a Tigers team that should have been dominant in this game.
Although, I mean, do you think the discipline obviously is a factor, but I think what I want to know is where from this game we put Mississippi State as far as the West goes, as far as who's going to challenge Alabama. I mean, they play Alabama at home in November, and I mean, is that going to be a big game?
I mean, it's still early. It's just like we
with
said.
the knowledge
this
we
was
have,
just week 3,
yeah.
so we have just these stats to go off of. But right now in the West, Mississippi State is playing like the team that's going to give Bama the run this year.
I agree.
I mean, it shows right there. And you can say, I mean, maybe LSU was overrated. Maybe they shouldn't have been in that number 12
Maybe they
spot.
just had a real bad night.
Maybe they just had a real bad night. I'm not sure, but from going off of what I saw and from what I can read, as far as stat lines and stuff goes, Mississippi State is playing like that team this year.
Yeah. Well,
they have made such a significant improvement from where they were last year.
It's crazy that Bama is going to play them back to back. So they're going to play LSU
And then
in
Mississippi
Tuscaloosa,
State.
and then go on the road to Mississippi State the next week. And the bye is before LSU, so it's going to be real interesting.
That might really help out the Bulldogs a lot.
Yeah.
That might help out Mississippi State a lot. And especially if LSU can get it together and play real well, they don't have to beat Alabama, but they just have to play hard and wear them out a little bit. That really could help Mississippi State.
Which I think will happen. I think LSU is going to rebound. I mean,
Obviously.
Mississippi State is a perpetually slept-on team, especially when Dak Prescott isn't under center. So I think we'll see. I mean, anyway.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned Dak. I mean, while Fitzgerald, he's not quite putting up Dak numbers. I mean, he could well be on his way. And a win like this could be exactly what the Bulldogs need to vault into a very, very successful 2017.
Yeah, they just thrive with a mobile quarterback, man. It's good to see him getting some rushing yards and playing hard.
Yeah. Well, like you said earlier, Mississippi State goes between the hedges next week to play a Georgia team that, in my opinion, is anything but unproven. I mean, they've got a big road win, couple good wins at home. I mean, over who is
I
it?
agree.
Yeah,
I think I think the defense. I've been preaching this for weeks. I think it just comes down to Fromm. I mean, I think the defense is solid, proven. I think the run game is clearly proven, and I think the receivers are getting there. And a couple of Fromm mistakes could be the difference. I'm not worried about them competing. I'm just worried about them finishing it out.
Absolutely. Well, it's going to be a big game because now both teams are ranked. You got Georgia at number 11. You got Mississippi State at number 17. It's going to be Sanford's going to be rocking.
Oh,
That's going to be a great atmosphere. And while it's a tough road game for Mississippi State, at the risk of being hurt by you once we hit the stop button here, I'm going to take the Maroon Bulldogs over the red and black ones.
I took them too.
Yeah, Mississippi State is going to beat UGA and Sanford 35-30. Behind
High scoring
Nick
game.
Fitz. Yeah. Oh, I think they're going to see a lot of scoring.
All right.
I hope so, but maybe not. But anyways, I'll take them. I think Nick Fitzgerald's going to go in there and play like a madman.
I could see it. I mean, yeah, like I said, they've gotten beat. They got thrown on a little bit last week. Georgia did, so we'll certainly see. But we are talking about a Mississippi State team that has yet to score less than 37 points. So you might be
they can get it
dead
done.
on.
They can score. And LSU is going to head back to Baton Rouge next week. They're going to play the Orange of Syracuse, which is an interesting matchup. I know they went there and played in the Dome last year. But they should be able to get back on track, I think.
I agree.
They should be able to handle the Orange. I'm going to call them 27-10. And let's see if they can kind of tighten the reins and play with a little bit more discipline.
As far as way too early takes on Ogeron, I'm just not a believer, man.
You don't think it's going to happen for him?
No, I don't personally.
Well, this definitely doesn't, put him in the right direction. I don't know. He seems like a good fit to me.
I think he's a good.
Like, the eye test is there for him, but then, like, when you see them play, you're like, oh.
That's exactly how I feel about it.
Yeah.
I am yet to see them play like they did for less. I think they love him. I think he's a great coach. I think he's a great guy on an emotional level. Again, yeah, I agree. I just haven't seen the LSU football that I'm used to seeing.
And to me, he's one of those CEO coaches. I don't know a ton about how I was always really young when Les like when Les was like winning the national championships and stuff.
Right.
So the way Ed O really works, from what I've seen, is he just kind of lets his coordinators take over. He lets Matt Canada work. He lets Dave Aranda work, and he just kind of is that rallying motivational factor.
The face.
And I think maybe Les probably took a lot bigger hand in what was going on, and I think maybe Coach O is kind of letting his coordinators handle it, like I said. But we'll see how they continue on this season. And we'll see if they stick with Coach O or they move in another direction.
Definitely. Maybe just call it a period of transition.
Maybe so. They might just call it, that transition year when they were just kind of sticking with their interim for a while. But we'll see how the Tigers do next week.
All right. We got a big one. Cue the Titanic music. Florida 26, Tennessee 20.
Don't take us down. That's not. You can't copyright me singing that, right?
Oh, no way.
Okay, cool, great. Especially not that bad.
We dropped Titanic. We dropped the name in. But, yep, that score because Florida did not have to kick an extra point because they won on a game-winning touchdown pass from Felipe Franks. Heartbreak for Tennessee. Huge win for Florida.
Humongous win for Florida. That pass was beautiful, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, that was a gorgeous. I mean, he put that in just a place where only Cleveland could get it.
Right.
Only him. I mean, it was a beautiful pass.
Unreal. I think Felipe Franks making a case for himself, at least as
I think so.
Future fan favorite after that one. But anyway, crazy game in the swamp this week. A ton of mistakes, particularly on the UT side, with 3 interceptions. Florida threw a pick. Florida lost 2 fumbles, 3 missed UT field goals. Absolutely insane. We're going to just start with just throwing out some numbers. Quentin Dormady went 21 for 39, 259 yards, 1 touchdown, and of course those 3 picks. The dude just had a really. I was talking about this last week. How he obviously they blew him out last week.
But you said last week, what you said last week was this game's going to come down to how Dormady plays.
Yeah, and if he makes mistakes, because he made some mistakes in that game, which is ridiculous, and to see him come out and sure enough do it, twofold against a really good defense.
Yeah, 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions is a bad ratio.
I will say that touchdown to Ethan Wolf was a great throw.
It was
gorgeous. I think he's got potential. I just think that it's a rough time to be playing. He's just still very green. Still has a lot of room for improvement. It's crazy. I want to give a shout out to Marquez Callaway that I've been saying every week. Every time this man touches the ball, he scores. I think it's really just every time he touches the ball, somebody scores.
He's a one-touch touchdown machine. Just could go either way.
To the tipped picks for both Florida and Tennessee were pretty huge. But I just want to talk about the fact that this game was 6-3, Florida going into the fourth quarter. And these are the drives in the fourth quarter. Pick 6. Oh, and this is UT and then UF. So UT pick 6, missed field goal, and that's UT throwing the pick 6, by the way.
Right.
Of course. UT misses a field goal, then Florida fumble, then touchdown, pick, field goal, Florida touchdown, game over. It's ridiculous.
What? That's crazy. Bad. Good, bad. Good.
Right. It was just an insane game.
Yeah.
I feel like the numbers don't even really, where do I even start? First of all, just on the UT side, John Kelly was just basically the whole offense. He was 19 carries for 141 yards, 7.4 yards a carry against a good defense.
I am of the opinion that John Kelly, not only was he the best player on that field that day, he is probably one of the best skill players in this conference.
Oh, I agree. I mean, he's physically dominant. He's fast.
Yeah.
He's got good vision. He's patient, which we saw in some of those screen passes. Dude is good.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, it's crazy.
He had one kind of rough drop on a scoring drive that they were trying to punch it in, but mistakes happen.
I mean, otherwise he had 6 receptions for 96 yards. Just crazy. On the Florida side of the ball, it was encouraging to see some good running, especially with Scarlett still suspended. Malik Davis went 4 carries for 94 yards. He did, which was totally not his fault, but he did have that touchdown turned into a touchback after Justin Martin knocked it out just at the last second.
At the very last. Heads up play, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, seriously, no kidding. Talk about not giving up on a play. Yeah, it was just again, it was just crazy. I mean, it was fairly even just in terms of defensive stats. I mean, Florida had a sack and 5 tackles for loss. UT had 2 sacks, 3 tackles for loss. Felipe Franks, I mean, that's the difference. Literally, he was 18 for 28, 212 yards, 2 TDs, and he had a tipped ball get picked off as well. I think. I mean, he showed at least that the offense has life,
Yeah, he showed that they can't, when they absolutely have to score, they can.
And I think what you were talking about a couple weeks ago after that Michigan game was they just stuck with him, and that's the important thing.
Yeah, they let him play. They let him learn.
Yep.
They let him play. They let him screw up, and they let him get better as he played. They let him improve as the game went on, and they let him learn the defense.
Right, and I think all that really matters is getting the job done. And while it was a last second Hail Mary, I mean, the fact that they stuck with him is the reason why they won this game, along with incredible amount of mistakes on UT's part with the picks, with the missed field goals. Those field goals, I mean, that's 9 points. That's the difference.
Absolutely, and that could have won the game.
Yeah, and Florida was 100% on field goals, so. What do you do if you're a Vols fan now?
I mean, people seem to be feeling good, and then this happens, and now I see a lot of Vols fans calling for Butch Jones' head again. Which I mean, I can't fault you at all for that.
The back and forth is wild.
It's the unpredictability.
Yeah, I mean, and the fact that there's never a game where they're safely, it's going to pull it out.
It's never knowing how good Tennessee is until it's too late.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it.
It is. It's just I don't know. I don't really have a lot of vested interest in this team other than I know a lot of Tennessee fans. I just feel for y'all. I wish you could have a consistent season.
I wish, and that's what I had and that's what I had said in my preview was I just good or bad, the Knoxville and the fans and everyone just needs consistency. Just tank and let's get somebody new in there, or let's
solid 9 win,
solid
9 win,
exactly
10 win.
What I was about to say.
No question about it. You lost the games you should have lost, and you won the ones you should have won.
Absolutely,
that's how it happened.
Yeah.
It's not yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know how you feel about karma, as just a thing. You do something good, you get something good back.
Right.
Tennessee had the Hail Mary last year.
Hey,
and then
that's
they
why
got
I said cue the Titanic music.
Yeah,
it's the same thing.
And then they got it done to them this year. So,
but it just feels like either way, and I think your point is absolutely right on that. Either way, it doesn't matter because they don't capitalize on the big wins, and they don't, put the losses in the rearview mirror. I mean, it's just up and down and up and down and up and down, and it's just crazy. I mean,
yeah.
So I think you're absolutely right. I think consistency is all they need, and I see no end in sight.
No, I don't either.
Well, next week UT takes on UMass, and then the stretch of Georgia, South Carolina, Bama, Kentucky happens all in a row. They're going to have 2 games at home and then 2 on the road. Obviously, they're probably going to roll next week. I think this team just needs to take a breather, take a deep breath. If there are any expectations, they should be gone.
Yeah, absolutely. Take this UMass game as a chance just to figure out this offense.
Yeah, just try some stuff and just get consistent and stop turning the ball over and stop making mistakes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which they did not do week 1 against Georgia Tech. They didn't turn the ball over. And now, where does this come from? Anyway, it's crazy, but I really do want to talk about Florida taking on Kentucky next week.
Suddenly, this is a big game.
Oh, I know.
Suddenly, out of it, all it takes is 1 week and everything's changed.
Gosh, this is an enormous game in the East. I want to love Kentucky so bad in this game, but I can't. Yeah. And I think that this game, which we'll get to, the South Carolina game, there's a lot to unpack there, but I think Florida's going to win this game. I think it's going to be close. I don't think there's going to be a ton of offense. I think it's going to be 13-10 is what I'm calling it. I wouldn't be surprised if Florida hands Kentucky, Vandy, and UGA, the undefeated SEC East teams, their first loss. I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. I think the East, as much as I want somebody to pull ahead, I think it's going to be a huge mess.
Yeah, I want to agree with you there, but I think Florida drops one of those games. Georgia, Vanderbilt, or Kentucky. They drop one of them. I
yeah.
can't tell you which one it's going to be. My guess is Georgia, but yeah, I think they definitely drop one of them.
For sure.
They could drop Kentucky. I mean, if you're a Florida fan, I
don't know what to think.
I would have no confidence.
I'm just saying they that's what I'm getting at is they have the potential to beat all these teams. Like it could happen. They could totally upset the East, but I don't know.
Kentucky played great on the road in a hostile environment in Columbia last week.
Definitely.
They're going to go into the Swamp, which is one of the most hostile places to play in the country, but they've shown that they can do it.
Yeah, well, and I think maybe Kentucky's just playing with a chip on their shoulder. I mean, I'll get into it, but you're right. And well, it's one of those things like last year. Is Florida going to end up in the SEC championship, or are they going to lose 3 more games? I have no idea, but we will certainly see.
We will. Well, let's move back to the West then. Let's talk about Kevin Sumlin. Let's talk about him, and let's talk about the Texas A&M Aggies.
Please.
They went back to College Station, and they played, I guess they're calling themselves just Louisiana now, but we all know and love them as Louisiana Lafayette, so that's what I'm going to call them. They beat them in College Station 45-21. And this is really a tale of 2 halves. You know that DirecTV commercial where it's like, hey, I'm such and such, and I have DirecTV. It's like, hey, I'm second half Texas A&M, and I have DirecTV, and I'm first half Texas A&M, and I have cable. Like that's like what this game was like. With the Aggies down 21-14 at the half, and with Kevin Sumlin easily coaching for his job, I can only imagine the locker room atmosphere was heated.
I don't even know.
Yeah, the Aggies were doing everything they could to keep the Cajuns in the game. A weird call for a fake field goal in the second quarter that went nowhere. Miscues in the passing game, really all over the offense. The offensive line was whiffing on pretty basic run blocking schemes. The secondary was letting Lafayette receivers pretty much run at will. Mm-hmm. And so, I mean, they were doing everything they could just to give Louisiana Lafayette the ball game. This is an offense played with injuries also. Mm-hmm. Quarterback Nick Starkville and Jake Hubenak, they're both hurt.
Yeah.
So is star running back Travion Williams. So that could very well have a lot to do with their offensive woes right now. But Christian Kirk, who is the leader of this offense, was pretty quiet in this game, other than muffing his only punt return, which he definitely cannot do. He just had 3 receptions for 34 yards and a touchdown. And with him being one of their only remaining offensive weapons, they need him to make a bigger impact.
Yeah, it's just like a perfect storm down there, man. I mean, off the field is bad. On the field, the talent are making mistakes. Guys are getting hurt. I mean, it's just, I think it's already kind of a lost year for the program, and maybe just one to forget about. But we'll see.
Well, we'll have to see, because in the second half they played like a team that was playing for their coach's job.
No kidding.
Armani Watts and Tyrell Dotson continued to be the leaders of the defense. 7 solo tackles between them and 3 interceptions. One was brought back for 6 by Dotson. And again, just like last week, they needed those plays desperately to get the win. So, like we said, with the 45-21 win, someone lives to coach another day.
Yeah.
And that day is next week in Jerry World against the Razorbacks.
Yeah, it's going to be. Oh, yeah.
So let's talk about the Southwest Classic, if you wouldn't mind.
By
for a moment.
all means.
Otherwise known as the Job Security Bowl or the Hot Seat Classic, as you so perfectly called it last week. This game has an early kickoff. It's 11 a.m. Central, which I believe is the earliest kickoff time for this game since it started, I think.
Wow.
The Hogs are actually wearing some pretty sick new uniforms inspired by the Cowboys. If y'all want to go take a look at that on our Twitter, it's at askthebottle. Go on there and take a look. Got some pics of it up there. Arkansas is coming off a bye week, which was pretty sorely needed after the loss to TCU in week 2. So theoretically, they should be rested, revamped, and ready to go. Should be are the keywords in there. Conversely, Texas A&M, like we said, is coming off this home win against a G5 team that they easily could have lost. Mm-hmm. The Aggies' defense, and by defense I mean secondary mostly, is playing really well right now. Both Watts and Dotson have recorded a pick in the last 2 games, and with Austin Allen's struggles at QB and Arkansas's young receivers, I mean, they could spell disaster for the Hogs' passing game.
It's true.
Next week.
It's true.
Travion Williams, like we talked about, he's suited up for the game against Lafayette, but ultimately he didn't play. If he returns, that could spark the offense.
I think he'll be good to go, because I mean, you don't want to put a guy in that kind of game if he's not 100%. I think he'll be fine.
Yeah, he could play really well against Arkansas. The only problem is the Hogs' defense. They're playing a lot better than they did in 2016.
No joke.
Last week they held TCU to just 14 points through 3.5 quarters of football. And for an offense like TCU, I mean, to hold them just 2 scores all through the game is pretty good.
Yeah.
But Arkansas has lost the last 5 games against Texas A&M. They've lost 4 under Brett Bielema. And as a fan, I only hope that the streak doesn't increase to 6, at least for Brett's sake, because this fan base will turn on him.
Right.
If they come out flat against the Aggies, they will turn. And if the Hogs are going to get the win over the Aggies, this is without a doubt the year to do it. Because Arkansas is facing the most wounded A&M team they've seen yet.
Definitely. The way I see it, Arkansas happened to be a really great candidate for an early bye. I think we saw some flashes of good stuff, and then just some huge mistakes. And I mean, I won't even get back into the TCU game.
Yeah,
but,
we should probably better not.
But I do think that these two teams come in kind of in somewhat similar places.
Absolutely, yeah, I definitely agree with that.
And I just think it's going to be really interesting. I think whoever pulls it out is going to kind of be on the uptick as the season goes on, and whoever loses is going to keep going down.
Yeah. Well, according to Vegas, it's going to be a close one. Arkansas opens up as a 3-point underdog in this game.
I like that.
And I have to say, I thought it would be worse than that.
Yeah.
I definitely thought it would.
I think that's just enough to motivate,
Yeah. As far as my prediction goes, every fiber of my being is screaming at me, man. My brain hurts to even make this pick. But, man, my stupid Arkansas misguided optimism is rearing its ugly head again. And against my absolute better judgment, I'm taking the Hogs. Taking the Hogs over the Aggies in Dallas, 20-17. It's going to be a field goal.
All right. I'm down with that. It should be a good game. I can't wait to hear where we're at with that on next week's episode.
Yeah, I could probably go ahead and hit myself for relying on Arkansas's kicking game, but we'll see how that works out.
Hey, you never know.
All right, let's switch it back over to the East.
All right, switching back to a game that we attended, actually.
We did. Yeah, we did go to this
Vanderbilt
game.
Kansas State game, which was a very good game.
It was a great game. The atmosphere in what's it called? Memorial Stadium, right? Vanderbilt Memorial? I believe it is.
Yeah, I believe
was
so.
great. It was great.
Yeah, it was a fun game. It was definitely very Kansas State centric.
A lot of purple.
A lot of purple. It was. Oh yeah, it's just Vanderbilt Stadium.
Yeah.
It's a so much purple. It was basically a KSU home game. It definitely was fun to see Vandy kind of quiet that crowd a little bit towards the end.
It was.
It's this team's first win over a ranked non-conference team since 1946. That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's probably when Bill Snyder got out of college or something like that.
Bill Snyder was done with his masters by then. Man. He had
kids.
He's been around for a while.
Yeah, it was a good game. Also, the first time Vandy's been 3-0 since 2011. Just another kind of feather.
That was a good year for them.
Yeah.
2011 was ended up being like a 9-win year, right?
It was.
I think 8 or 9. So that's definitely a good omen.
Wow, yeah. Bill Snyder was 7.
He's just really smart.
That's crazy. But yeah, this game, it looked a lot different in person than it did on film and on the stat sheet. I will say, Vandy definitely looking back got some really lucky breaks.
That's a great point, and I was going to make that point if you didn't.
Yeah.
Because it's good to see Vandy win, but they really, a couple of fumble. There was like a real big fumble that we were like, oh man, that's going to turn the tides, and it ended up being knee down.
So Shermer's knee was down in the second quarter. DJ Reed ran a punt all the way back for a touchdown, called back. That's a mistake by Kansas State, but it's still,
it's still a lucky break for Vanderbilt. Because the coverage was not there.
Kansas State,
he sliced him.
Yeah. And when we saw that field goal, because we were over in that end zone, and we were facing the Jumbotron, and Kansas State just barely missed a field goal. Anyway, it could have gone the other way. I thought Kansas State, Jesse Ertz on the ground, pretty valiant effort, 24 carries for 126 yards. He's a big guy. That was pretty.
He is a big guy.
Pretty good to see.
It's crazy to see a quarterback running the option, and it's like, dude, you're a tight end.
Yeah. But as far as passing goes, 10 for 28, 76 yards passing on the day for Kansas State with 2 picks. Vandy secondary is not a joke.
We kept making that joke about why do they keep running this play? It's like watching somebody play Madden and all they know how to do is like run the option keeper.
Right.
And then they throw the ball and we go, oh,
That's why.
That's why they keep running the play.
Yeah, man. I mean, I it's one of those things where it's like I don't think he's a bad quarterback.
No, I don't think
I think
so.
Vandy's secondary is just fast. They're good. I mean,
He had multiple when they'd run those little curl routes on the outside. They kind of cut back to the quarterback, and he had men wide open.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you just see like black jersey just fly in and like knock it. I mean, they played real well.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought Vandy was just swarming the ball. The difference again were those lucky breaks, and just Kyle Shermer is he's got poise. I think he can stay in any game and keep a cool head. He went 14 for 23, 205 yards and a touchdown. Nothing insane, but he gets the job done. I think he does enough to get it done. I think he's smart. I think he plays smart. I think he's got a good... they just seem to come in with a good game plan for him, and he sticks to it. He rushed in for a score. Crazy. Only 4 receivers in this game had receptions. 4.
That's weird. I feel like it'd be more than
For
that.
college football, that feels right. It feels weird. Leader Trent Sherfield had 4 receptions for 97 yards. Again, just 4 catches for their leading receiver. Anyway, they could not get the run game going. Ralph Webb toted the ball 21 times for just 46 yards, 2.2, and he lost a fumble. Not really something you want to see from a vet player like that, but I mean, I think the point remains here that they just did enough to get it done. They had 2 sacks, 8 tackles for loss. Vandy did. O-line only allowed 1 sack and 2 tackles for loss. That's pretty good.
That's really
pretty
good.
insane. So at least Ralph was, getting positive yardage on most of those plays. I think that Vandy kind of sneakily took control of this game, even despite the lucky breaks. I just think Kansas State made a few too many mistakes. But that's college football. I mean, it happens every week. That's the difference in all these games, usually, unless they're, really big blowouts. I just want to go ahead and get into next week. Vanderbilt, Bama, again, like we were talking about with Kentucky playing Florida next week. This is a huge game. Just as far as
it is,
and that's crazy.
Yeah,
but it's cool, and I want to see what Vandy does with this momentum. I want to see how if they're able to limit their mistakes. If Kyle Shermer is able to stay poised and stay positive under probably the most pressure he'll be under all year, without a doubt.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's been playing really well, but I mean, what defense has he seen?
Right.
He's going to be staring into the teeth of that Alabama defense.
Absolutely.
And as poised as he's been, he's going to have to go out there and take care of the ball. He cannot throw interceptions. He can't fumble.
Yeah, no, he literally cannot.
You cannot.
Like, hang on the ball, put those knees down, man.
Yeah.
I feel like we're pep talking him. It's almost
Hey, man, if you're listening.
It's almost as if we're biased. But
Hometown teams.
We saw. Hey, that's true. We saw Kansas State against Kansas State. We saw them have a lot of success on those crossing routes and on those slants. And I think that they can pick on Alabama's linebacker core a little bit just because it's so injury riddled. But apart from that, I mean, what weakness do you attack? They're going to have guys that are out there anyway that are covering those guys. I just think it's going to be interesting. They got to keep at least this much of a run game as they had this week. I think Ralph Webb's definitely going to have to shoulder a big load yet again. It's nice to have a vet, though. Hopefully he won't fumble. But anyway, yeah, and if they make 1 or 2 big plays on defense, I mean, this will be a game. Otherwise, if they come out like we always see and play for a quarter, play for 2 quarters, and then start to make mistakes, start to get in their own heads, it's going to be just another Bama game. But we'll see what happens. I think Bo Scarborough is going to eat in this game. Personally, I think he's going to be able to get through a lot. I'm calling Bama to win 28-13 in Nashville.
Yeah, I think you're probably going to be right about that, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Well, moving along, kind of keep it rolling here. Let's move back to the West. Let's talk about the Auburn Tigers for a little while. The number 15 Auburn Tigers.
Yeah.
Win against Mercer, an FCS team, 24-10. Coming off last week's loss to Clemson, they get a needed victory really over Mercer on the Plains. But before we get into the game, some news. Backup quarterback Sean White was arrested after the win against Mercer for public intoxication around 3:30 in the morning. And he's a pretty quick guy. Mm-hmm. Like, you think his elusiveness and his being able to get away from the guys in the pocket, like, he could have gotten away from the cops, but guess not. And breaking news today, Monday the 18th, Sean White has been dismissed from the team after his arrest. He was already on a 2-game academic suspension, so I'm sure Gus has probably had it with him.
Yep.
And unfortunately for Auburn, this leaves them with essentially no depth at quarterback.
Nope.
Behind Stidham are Malik Willis and Devin Adams, and Adams is the only one of the two that's taken snaps this year.
And is Stedham, and it would be different if Stedham was, like a Cam Newton or like a big time player.
Exactly, it would be different
But
if he had really shown.
This is a big deal.
This is a really big deal not to have a backup. So here's the hope, and he stays healthy for everyone in Auburn's sake.
No kidding.
So let's back to the football, right? Auburn turned the ball over 5 times.
Yeah, man.
That is ludicrous and will not fly against literally anyone in the SEC.
And this is against Mercer, a team
Against Mercer.
from Macon, Georgia, who, like you said, FCS team, 5 turnovers.
5 turnovers.
I mean, it's hard for me to believe that there's something in the water in Mercer that's making them turnover machines.
Yeah. Well, Stidham was efficient at the very least. He was 32 of 37 for 364 yards, but he didn't score in the air, and he threw 1 interception. Petway was the only running back to get carries in this game. I'm not sure why that is against an FCS team. 34 of them for 128 yards and 3 touchdowns. It's pretty weird, like I said, that Gus wouldn't get any depth in at running back, but I mean,
just put somebody in there.
what if
Petway
playing
gets hurt?
Yeah. And I mean, but who am I to say?
That's wild.
Yeah.
That's 34 carries.
34
That's
carries
crazy.
against an FCS team, exactly. I mean, in the offense, as it stands, is pretty predictable at this point. Run until you can't anymore.
Yep.
Throw the ball and hope it's complete. And Petway was pretty dinged up. Stidham just hangs onto the ball for like a really long time. They need to tighten up ball control before they move into any SEC play. Mm-hmm. The defense, again, played pretty well. They held Mercer to 10 points and 246 yards. But if I'm being honest, that should have been much, much lower.
Yep.
If the Tigers ever have to outscore anybody, the defense needs to lead the charge, and I didn't really see that against Mercer.
No. Well, I mean, and I know you'll get into, going to Mizzou next week, a team that struggled pretty mightily, but I mean, we've seen that they can put points on the board. So
they might. It might be next week that they have to outscore somebody.
I think that game's gonna be nuts.
Yeah, it's like we said, they're traveling to Columbia, Missouri next week to take on yet another Tiger team. At the end of the day, I expect Auburn to come away with a win. There's no reason why they shouldn't, but it's not going to be pretty.
Yeah, I agree. I think at least, we talk about consistency. I mean, at least they have what they're going to come out and do. Petway is going to get the ball a lot. I don't think it's a pretty weird decision to have him totally banged up before you go into an SEC game of any type, because we know no SEC game is a lock win for anybody. But that's going to be a weird game. So anyway, what do you think is going to happen?
Well, their offense is going to struggle again, I think. I think that they're going to have to let Kerryon Johnson and Cam Martin shoulder some carries. They don't have another choice.
Yep.
Stidham's not going to be able to throw the ball, I don't think, as well. I mean, he might get a touchdown or two, but it's going to have to be the run game again that steps up. Their offensive line's going to have to play well. Their defense is what's going to win them this game.
I completely agree. I was going to say that.
They're going to stifle the Missouri passing attack, I think.
Yep.
So I'm calling the blue and orange Tigers. They're going to beat the black and yellow Tigers. 27-14.
All
I
right.
think that's probably an appropriate score for that.
Well, going right off of that, I will dive into the Missouri-Purdue game back in the East. And I agree. I think that we kind of know maybe what it takes to beat the Tigers in Columbia is start fast, don't let up, and just make sure Locke can't throw the ball. I mean, that's pretty much it. What is happening in Columbia, man? It's just been a weird. We kind of didn't really know what to make of this team going in. We knew that they had a lot of depth, and especially offensive line depth and stuff like that. But it's just been up and down, up and down. I mean, it was very strange.
I felt good about Purdue coming in because of the way they played against Louisville.
Me too. But
week 1, but I was
this
not expecting
good.
this. I was not expecting this.
Absolutely. I mean, let's talk about the fact that Missouri had the ball for 16 minutes in this game. Purdue had the ball the other 43.
People like to lean a lot on time of possession, and as an Arkansas fan, I've always gone back and forth on time of possession. We use that as a big thing. We hang on to the ball. Man, it is an important stat if it's 16 to 43 minutes.
That's why I included it.
That's
because I don't include it in every game.
If it's so swung one way.
I mean, we're talking about 26 first downs. Missouri had 10. Purdue just started fast. They scored on their first 3 drives. Missouri punted. First 3 drives, Drew Lock was held to 133 passing yards. He went 12 for 28. Again, talking about just average length of reception, 4.8 yards. He threw 2 picks. He had no touchdowns, bringing in a stellar 14.8 QB rating.
That's not. I mean, if your main attack on offense is throwing the ball,
and again,
that's not gonna do
numbers are numbers, but I mean, it was just brutal to watch as well. And the run game didn't do anything. The whole team, I think, they had 70 yards total rushing, 2.9 yards a carry. Leading rusher Ish Witter had 25 yards on 7. They were playing from behind from the get-go, so I don't expect it to be a big running game. But still, just the fact that this offense just could not get anything going. They were barely on the field. Only 3 receivers caught balls in this game on the Missouri side. Missouri lost a fumble as well. They turned the ball over 3 times total. I want to talk about Drew Lock's second interception because it is not his fault. He threw a rope to Jamon Moore, who I've talked about, and it looked like a lock for a score. And right as Jamon Moore was crossing the goal line, the Purdue cornerback just stole it. Just
took it right away from him.
And it's pretty clear that, I know one player's action doesn't speak for everybody, and, people make heads-up plays all the time, and people get caught sleeping. But, come on. Like, you got to fight to the end.
Yeah.
You got to play like you want it. If you want to make it in the SEC, if you want to make it in college football. It was wild. And Purdue didn't have a sack in this game. And they only had 4 tackles for loss. I think they just got the ball. They chewed a lot of clock. They just balled out for 4 quarters. And, it was wild. Missouri had 3 sacks, 8 tackles for loss, and they picked the ball off of the backup. But, it's like Missouri didn't – they're just flat. It's crazy. Purdue just ran away with it. It kind of makes me wish Purdue had beaten Louisville.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it'd be like, wow. But I was looking at their schedule going forward, and they go on to play Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Rutgers, Nebraska, Illinois, and it just goes on and on. They got a tough schedule.
That murderer's row of Michigan, Minnesota, Wisconsin, right 3 back-to-back, that's going to suck.
But Purdue's a good team, man. I felt like they had maybe an edge coming in here. I think I'd probably call Missouri to win it, but I think I could see them, being maybe a more complete team, especially after that. But definitely not by this much. I felt like it could have been close, but I did not think it was going to be a blowout. It's wild. I think next week I'm calling Auburn to win against Missouri 17-7. I think Barry Odom seat. I think the heater is
turning up the seat heater a little bit.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's go back to the West. Really, really far back west, all the way to Berkeley, California, where the Ole Miss Rebels fall to the Cal Golden Bears 27-16.
Bizarre game.
This game had crazy potential.
Yep.
I really thought it was going to be a way high-scoring game.
Me
I thought
too.
it was going to be just like touchdown. But it didn't end up. That wasn't what happened. Pac-12 After Dark claims another victim. This one being the Ole Miss Rebels. Penalties were a huge factor in the Rebels' loss. Ole Miss had 16 for 113 yards. And again, just like I said about LSU, that's going to kill you regardless of your opponent.
Every time.
And it made the already struggling Ole Miss offense deal with long yardage situations way too often. Mm-hmm. And to add injury to insult.
Insult to injury?
No, injury to insult. Top wide receiver target A.J. Brown is down. Oof. Goes down hard on an interception play. He did not return to the game. Still no news as of today of his condition. But we, along with everyone in Oxford, anxiously await news. We'll definitely tweet out when we get that news.
No joke.
We were kind of right about this being an offensive game. We just weren't right about it being a shootout. Ole Miss racked up 416 yards of offense, and Cal earned 399. Ole Miss led at one point, 16-7 after a missed PAT in which kicker Gary Wunderlich was injured. Actually, strangely enough, pulled his hammy. Ooh, yeah, right. He's a good kicker. They're going to miss that. But unfortunately for them, they were done scoring for the day. Shea Patterson went 26 of 44 for 363 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. And every interception was costly in this game, one of which was returned for a touchdown. The Landshark defense only allowed 2 offensive touchdowns from Cal on the day, but couldn't keep him out of field goal range. 2 made field goals from Cal kicker Matt Anderson would put the Golden Bears up 20-16 late, and the pick 6 would seal the game for Cal. The Rebels have a bye week coming up, and it could be very merciful depending on how severe the injuries to Brown and Wunderlich ended up being. If they don't get those guys back we don't have no information, like I said, but if they don't get them back for the rest of the season, that's definitely going to hurt. I would expect Wunderlich to come back. This bye week, like I said, could be huge for their recovery.
Yeah, I agree.
Perfectly timed bye week.
Definitely. I do think Ole Miss kind of walked into a bit of a buzzsaw this week, and those mistakes like the Patterson pick. It's just, again, every week with Ole Miss is going to be like, huh.
Yeah, well, I texted you about that pick. I said, he plays like Johnny Football, and the Johnny Football bug will bite you
Oh, yeah.
sometimes. And so,
Trying to be the hero.
yeah. Well, they're going to need those guys back because Week 5 is the big one in Tuscaloosa.
Man.
And I'm not feeling great about Ole Miss chances, but they're going to need every player they've got, especially A.J. Brown.
No kidding. Yeah, I think if you're Ole Miss in that game, you just pull no punches anywhere you can. I mean, you just come out and just try and be as fast and as tough as you can possibly be and just hope for the best. I mean, it's pretty much like just put the pedal to the metal and see what happens. I think, whereas we think, with Vandy, you got to stay solid. You got to be a little conservative, and you got to just not make mistakes. I think Ole Miss just needs to
just
do
bomb
the opposite.
Yeah. First down deep pass every time.
Gas those Alabama defenders all day long.
Well, regardless of the outcome of the game, I love watching SEC Pac-12 games, and I wish they happened way more often.
Very entertaining. I mean, we were excited, and even though it wasn't a barn burner like we thought it was going to be, it's still a crazy good game.
Yeah, it was
still awesome. All right, well, rounding out the East, I'm going to talk about an enormous game, an upset. Kentucky beating South Carolina 23-13.
You and I were. We said, we said that Kentucky was going to lose this game.
We were in complete agreement.
Yeah, both of us.
It was in South Carolina. I mean, dang.
Yeah, really, really. Like of all the games that we talked about, I mean, maybe LSU, Mississippi State, I didn't expect, but this one, I didn't expect.
Yeah,
for sure. I really didn't expect.
No, I mean, again, we say that no SEC game is a guaranteed win, and this is exactly what that means.
We mean it.
It was insane. It started off just crazy. First 5 drives, South Carolina with the ball first, touchdown, then a Kentucky interception, and then a South Carolina missed field goal, fumble, interception. Then UK just kind of took the lead and kept it. I mean, I do want to talk about the fact that Deebo Samuel, stellar, unbelievable playmaker for the Gamecocks, is done for the year after breaking his foot. Did you watch that?
Yeah. I saw today an update where they said that it's 5 to 6 weeks.
Oh.
But that's still going to kill you. You're going right through that huge SEC stretch right there.
That's crazy. Well, because I double-checked, because I watched it, and I was like, that doesn't look so
It doesn't
bad.
look so. It is a fractured ankle, though.
Because he walked off the field under his own power. He definitely was on the ground for a good minute. But I was like, man, maybe that's just a real bad ankle sprain, something like that. But that's encouraging to know because, I mean, he's an unbelievable talent, and I think somebody that's going to go far. And you hate to see – I mean, we all remember when Marcus Lattimore went down back in the day.
Oh, God.
You hate to see a huge playmaker from the Gamecocks go down again, so it's good to hear that he is all right.
Well, and he's a huge game maker because I read a stat line that the Gamecocks have scored 13 touchdowns this season, and he's responsible for 6 of them.
Whoa.
So they need him to get back as soon as possible.
I think we saw sort of in this game kind of twofold the fact that he's one team is not made by one playmaker, and because after he left, I mean, they scored, but it was over, and it was just rough to watch. But if we're talking about Kentucky, which is the main focus here, the fact they won this game on the road. Benny Snell carrying the ball 32 times for 102 yards, just workhorsing it. His
beast game for him.
Yeah, his 2 touchdowns were the difference. That first one was close. I mean, he literally put the ball was on the line. I don't think it was really even on either side. He just barely got there. It was a good break for the Wildcats. I think a cool thing that offensive coordinator Eddie Gran did in this game that I think plays to Kentucky's strengths is South Carolina never really got grounded, never really knew what they were up against. They kept changing it up. They were running the Wildcat. They were letting Steven Johnson throw it. They were letting him run it. They were just changing it up constantly. And I think South Carolina was kind of back on their heels from the start. Obviously I talked about how there was a lot of turnovers to start the game, but I think the fact that Kentucky kept it diverse, they used a lot of different formations. I think was a really good game plan. They stuffed South Carolina's run game completely. Rico Dowdle went 8 for 23, 2.9 yards a carry. The whole team had 54 yards rushing, and they were playing from behind, but not by much. Huge stops from Kentucky's defense. 4th and goal early in the 4th quarter. Dowdle gets stuffed at the goal line. Derek Beatty Jr. is who I want to talk about. 6'3", 190-pound cornerback. he can do it all. He can stop the goal line runs. He had an insane pick to ice the game with 1:30 left. He had another 4th down stop. I mean, it's cool to see some really solid athletes on this Kentucky team. Steven Johnson, one of those. He went 16 for 25, 169 yards, no touchdowns and a pick. But on the ground, he had 7 carries for 74 yards, which a couple of those carries were a huge difference, including a 54-yard run at the end of the game.
Kind of to put it on ice.
Yeah, and he decided to slide at like the 10-yard line to kill some more clock. Playing smart. Spread the ball around to 9 different receivers. So did South Carolina, by the way. They had 10 different receivers, but it was just a solid performance. Nothing insane from Kentucky. They just scored. They finished the drives that they needed to. They rebounded from mistakes. They changed it up. On the other side, Jake Bentley of South Carolina went 24 for 36, aired it out a pretty good bit, 304 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 picks. Those 2 picks, that's going to cost you every time. The Wildcats, again, they just had just enough gadgets to kind of pull it out. The South Carolina defense had a sack, 4 tackles for loss. Kentucky had 2 sacks, 3 for loss. But the defense made big plays is the point. Off the stat sheet, they just made big plays. South Carolina missed 3 field goals. Kentucky made 3 field goals. I mean, when you start to look at it, you know why they won this game. But still,
like you
huge
said,
shock.
that's 9 points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's 9 points. That is
that's math.
That's enough to almost win it.
Yeah.
This is a close game though. USC pulled it to 20-13 with 6.5 minutes left. They were definitely on the move, but Steven Johnson, just like we were talking about, he just iced it. He kept picking up first downs. He had that huge run. It's just a senior guy that is playing his heart out. I'm not really sure where
At the very least, he knows what he's doing. Like,
right.
He can manage a game.
Right, and that's what we love about college sports is you don't know where this guy's going to go. You don't think he's super high on anyone's draft boards, but he's a talented player and he's going out and just making plays. And I think that's what we love about the SEC and what I hope we see more of. While we talk about it being kind of a dumpster fire, whatever people want to call it, or being not the same as the SEC used to be, it's pretty cool to see within the conference teams like this competing. And we're not saying that Kentucky or teams like Vandy or those teams that get blown out every year, but there was a stretch where come on, the conference is very lopsided. So it's encouraging to see just how competitive it is within the conference right now, specifically in the East. I know a lot of things don't make a lot of people happy, but it's good football.
It is. Yeah, what this game was bad football.
Yeah.
Well, you could call it bad football, but I enjoy it.
South Carolina should beat Louisiana Tech next week. I'm sure they're a bit demoralized, a bit beaten up. I'm still calling. I think Kentucky loses to Florida. I know you disagree next week.
Well, I don't necessarily disagree. I just think that it shouldn't be such a Florida is going to win. I think there's a really good chance Kentucky might win.
And that's how I feel about it. I'm thinking I'm giving Florida the edge. I think they win by a field goal because of the defense. But South Carolina has a good defense. Yeah. And we'll see what kind of game plan Kentucky comes in. I think this could be another one that comes down to the wire when it's all said and done. Do you got any more West games?
Yeah, I have one more. Just going to talk about the Crimson Tide briefly.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the Crimson Tide roll again in Tuscaloosa against Colorado State this week. The number 1 ranked Alabama Crimson Tide, by the way.
Yep.
They roll 41-23 over the Rams of Colorado State. Last week, Jalen Hurts set a new personal best on the ground. Well, this week he did it in the air. 12 of 17 for 248 yards and 2 touchdowns, including a 78-yard burner to Calvin Ridley. The Crimson Tide running game was again dominant. 239 on the ground. Hurts and Scarborough led the day with 169 combined yards on the ground. They spread the ball around a lot more this game on offense, which is going to fare them well down the road in the SEC. They have tons of talent, and it's good to see them using it. 8 different players caught passes, and all 4 running backs on the roster got at least a carry. So it's good to get the depth going. This vaunted Alabama defense, though, they allowed almost 400 yards of offense for Colorado State, which, I'm sorry, it's not okay for this defense.
No way. Even backups.
Yeah, I understand 13 of their 23 points came in the fourth when, like you said, some depth players were in.
Sure.
But regardless, this defense should have been much more stifling.
I agree.
Colorado State wide receiver Warren Jackson had a crazy jump catch off the Alabama defender's back in the end zone, kind of like that pro throw catch back in the day. And funnily enough, Jackson was the only Colorado State receiver to score while recording the fewest receptions and yardage of the day. He had 2 receptions for 7 yards, and they were both touchdowns. Wow. Next week, the Tide heads to Nashville, like you said, to take on an undefeated Vanderbilt team coming off a great home win against Kansas State. Mm-hmm. And we were saying earlier, we were joking, as Twilight Zone-y as it is to say the phrase, Alabama should really keep it locked against Vanderbilt if they want to win. I'm saying it. The Doors are playing some great football right now, and while I'd love to see an upset of number 1 in my home city, there's just no way I think that Vandy wins this game. I'm taking the Tide 31-17.
All right. I think, what did I think I
had
said something
said
very similar.
You had said something really similar. You had said 28-13.
Yeah. So,
and I said 27-17.
Wow,
So pretty close. Or 27 31 or 31-17, sorry.
All right.
So pretty close.
I do want to say against Vanderbilt, all time, Alabama's 58-19. They've lost to them 19 times. They've won the last 21 meetings against Vanderbilt. No shock to anybody, but it would be insane if Vanderbilt could pull it out.
This might be our last podcast episode because Nashville might burn to the ground. If they beat, we might both be dead. So hope you've been enjoying it,
Man.
No, I don't see it really happening for him, but I would just love for him to go out and play well, like at the end of the day.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's all we want to see is just see this team compete. You know, we don't want to come in here every week for the rest of however long and be like, well, it's pretty much Alabama locked and loaded. You know, it's all about being competitive, and whether you're a fan of, doesn't matter who you're a fan of, it's fun to see things change year to year. And I just hope Vandy comes out swinging. Hope they keep it tight. But I hope Alabama competes. I just hope it's a good game.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
all I care about.
Absolutely. And it just feels good to be into conference play.
Definitely.
Finally.
We're getting into the kind of the meat of it.
Finally. And it feels good to be into interesting conference play.
I did not think that we would be so deep. I mean, we're getting to the point where so many teams have won and lost that it's like we're almost starting over again. Like it's crazy. It's
literally,
it's still absolutely anybody's conference either way.
Yeah. And that could be a product of just being early in the season. But literally, I mean, it's almost felt like, I don't know if you've had this sensation, but it's almost felt like whatever we say this week is not going to be the case next week.
Right. Oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, well, we were totally wrong again.
Back new drawing board every week. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll see what happens. I'm very excited for week 4.
Yeah.
Should be good.
I am too. I think it's going to be great. So keep it locked right here at Ask the Bottle for all your scathing analysis. Thank you guys for listening. Always write to us at askthebottlecast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at askthebottle. Tweet to us your thoughts, your questions, your concerns. Any predictions that you have for games, always tweet at us.
Oh, please,
Anything you want us to say on the show or like any opinions that you have, please let us know. Listen and subscribe to us on iTunes and SoundCloud. Go on there on iTunes and leave us a rating. Leave us a review. Tell us what you think.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you're a Bama fan, I mean, we hate you because we ain't you.
That's probably how they feel about pretty much everybody. It doesn't necessarily have to be the SEC. I am Clint Childers. That guy over there, the Georgia Peach. His name is Mitch Davis.
Thank y'all for listening.
Absolutely. And we will see y'all next week.
Woo.